Hey Ken, how are you?
Hey, Aaron. It's
How you
good to be
doing?
back.
Yeah, I
Huh?
know, I know. I'm glad that you were able to take a few minutes to be here with us today.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so if you want to just kind of introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started with the Q&A.
Okay. Well, my name's Ken Copeland. My, I guess my Instagram handle is Cuban Links. That's also my gamer tag. I am a air traffic controller by profession, an aunt by, I guess, by birth and marriage, and I love being that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, a fiance. Um,
Yes.
yeah, which is still mad wild to think
Yes.
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a
Hmm.
gamer, definitely. And I like I just think a chilled person.
Yeah, you are.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting too when I think back to how we met. I think if I remember correctly, we were all at like a movie, right? Weren't we at a movie?
Yes, we were at some Tyler Perry movie that my mother made me take her to
Because I
for
hate
it was
girl,
because I
and
hate them all.
that
I
could be
hate
a
them
segment.
all.
That could be a segment all by itself, girl. I'm there with them, my mother and my aunts. They want to see it, and I'm like, spare me. I can't. The wigs, the 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 the
The
messages.
wigs,
Sometimes,
the themes, just the way that he portrays black women and black men and people, and what makes me so mad is our community runs behind him like he's doing a great. No, he makes us look terrible.
yes, yes, and it's so funny because when I say things like that, people are like, "But he's doing." So listen, I try to separate. Like, I'm proud of his accomplishments. Like, I think it's dope that like he can do different things that he can do with the money that he's made, right? So
Yeah,
that's
but it's to me it's the same as like black people who own slaves. Like, yeah, it's nice that you made it, but I think you missed the entire point.
yeah,
You-
yes, yeah, yeah. That's a girl. That's a whole other thing because the wigs for me, I'm like, now you make too much money to still
okay.
be using them wigs.
To still be using those terrible wigs. Like,
I mean, they are highly flammable.
what's that? I can't even remember the name. I think it was a fall from grace or something like that. I didn't watch it. I just saw the memes. Did you see that fool's high top wig? It was terrible. Please check it out one
What is?
time because I was
Oh, I
just
saw
like,
it. I
uh,
saw it, and I talked about it, and I said, "Here we go again. Here we go again," and it's
it was
only
just
getting
like,
worse.
and that's what it's like. It's like, how did you manage to get worse? And you worth like $1 billion? Like,
The wigs, man. It's just like
you
it
and
does
you can
something.
get better wigs at the Black Beauty Supply. Like, who's making these wigs and
And
why?
why are they accepting this? It's like, no, I want something better to represent me. Um, oh my goodness, this just made me laugh so hard because it drives me nuts. And it's like, why?
I can't.
So yeah, so I digress, but that's how that's,
Yep. No,
that's
no, no,
how
no. You have to tell the whole story because people need to. So, like, I'm pretty quiet and
yeah,
relaxed.
yeah, yeah.
And my mom is a whole firecracker.
Yes,
And
yes,
so we we lived in a town
yes.
that didn't have many brown faces. I
Right.
don't know if are there any more now, or
Oh
we
yes, it was not many.
and so my mom and I had just moved there, maybe
Yeah.
like a year or two before, something like that, and we hadn't seen anyone that looked like us. And I took her to a terrible Tyler Perry movie because it was Mother's Day and that was her wish.
Oh, it was.
And
Yes, yes,
yep,
yes.
it was Mother's Day and that was her wish. And we happened. You know what? I also didn't notice. You know, we were the only people in the theater.
Because it was
It
like
was just us.
it's always like a reunion because it's like, oh hey, 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 and we all came out for that, and so that's something in itself. But yes, that is so true. What just
And so on the way out, she saw you guys and just
yeah,
made a beeline and literally said, "I haven't seen any of us since
yes,
we got
yes,
here, and I'm so happy to see you."
yeah. And you know what's so interesting about it is that it's sad for one, but then it's also so interesting because it's like you get because that's how I am. It's like, oh my goodness, hello, and you feel like this weird, crazy person, but you just get so excited. And of course, things have changed. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember your mama. She sat and talked to us for. I mean, we stood out in that lobby
for a while.
For a long time. And I remember that night, she actually came walking with us because she was like, "What y'all about to do?" And you know, and they were like, "We're gonna go walk." And she's like, "I'm coming." And so and ever since then, you know, we started all rocking with each other. So yeah, that's funny. Oh, Tyler Perry brought us together. So I mean, we have to at least.
I refuse to give him any type of credit. I just refuse. I refuse. Y'all can come in my comments. I'll say it again. I'm at Cuban Links. I said what I said. I'm not sorry. I hate those movies and everything they stand for.
Girl, that Fall from Grace, I just will never forget when I saw, because I think at one point she walked in, the main character, and the wig was just so bad.
Well, that like, and there's a scene where the wig went bad and it was shifted on one side, and then they came back and it was still bad and shifted on the other. So y'all took the time to what? Attempt to fix it and didn't fix it? It's just like what is happening right now?
Oh my goodness, he made me come. Oh
no. Because I can't. How did that happen? It's like trying to fix a roof and you made it leak worse. Like it just didn't look better. It didn't look better.
It was the acting, everything. It just was, yeah.
Oh my God. And he's not a bad actor and she's not a bad actor.
But that together, it was catastrophic.
She said catastrophic.
Oh my goodness. I remember watching it like, wow, this is really bad. This is really, really bad. And I mean, they're always very predictable and
and that's what makes it funny is here was this movie that we're supposed to take seriously. I can't take that seriously. I can't. He's screaming for ashtrays with a wig. Here's the thing. You remember the high top wigs in the New Edition story? They looked better than the high top wig that they had slapped. I can't.
Yes.
I can't.
Yes. And I'm like, he literally can fly somebody in from another part of the world to make a wig. He literally can do that.
But they live in Atlanta. He's in Atlanta. He's based in Atlanta, and there's so many hairstylists.
You can literally create that. I mean, they can literally do that for him. And I'm like, he at this point, he just said, y'all get what y'all get because he realized that no matter what, people were going to support it, so he could throw out anything he wanted. And
I feel like he's trolling us. I feel like he knows. I do.
Like,
I mean, you have an amazing business acumen, but you can't find a proper hairstylist. I feel like we're being punked. I don't care what anybody says. That's my theory. That we're being trolls.
Oh my God. How do we get on? This is too much, but this is hilarious because you know I struggled internally with this, and I'm like, does anybody hear me? Does anybody understand?
Does anybody else see this?
Like, why is this what it is? Like, what is happening? And you know, especially when you see a person start, you know, doing different things like creating, you know, their own, like, don't he have like his own runway now in airport and you know all these things?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he does. I think he has his own. It was something that had to be voted on or something, but I think that he ended up getting that. But you know, his own studios. And I'm saying, you know, with that said, why do we still have these highly flammable?
It's the fact that you said highly flammable for me. Like, wait, what?
You know how some material you can look at it and tell that
like it itches
much for it to be set ablaze. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness!
She said highly flammable. It just looks like it's made out of cotton. Like I don't think they took the time to invest in hair.
It's like a woolish type. You know, so now okay. this has got me so tickled because yeah, I was really on this for a moment because I'm like, okay, this has got to stop. Like we've got to stop
We gotta
we got to stop.
stop.
You know, because I'm like, this has been years of this, and now you're going backwards. Like,
What kills me is when you see like churches buy out like theaters for their. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
how do you guys not notice, even beyond just the complete amateur nature of the skill work,
right. No, it's true.
the messages that he puts out are not beneficial to our community. They're just
No,
not.
no, and you know what's interesting about that? I remember when he first came on the scene, right? Um, it was like this new thing because it's like, oh, you know, he was homeless and you know, was able to pull himself up and he's making these plays and things like that. And I remember at first, you know, I was on that train like, let's support, this is cool, you know, and then of course growing up in the church with gospel music, you know, people singing and you know, whatever, you know, and so I was supportive. And then like you said, over time, you start to see this is a recurring theme. Like angry woman, you know, the woman that life is a total wreck, you know, she's, you know, yeah, what you about to say?
She well, I was that. I mean, the black woman can't ever have a stable, healthy relationship
Yeah,
um, until some some light skinned black man comes to save her. Dark skinned black men are always the antagonists and you know
it's so true.
the abusers of women.
Yeah,
I don't know how Medea figures into this nonsense all the time, but somehow she's got words of wisdom that aren't wise. Like you the purpose of having a wise elder is that their life shows some wisdom, and
yeah,
no, none
yeah,
of that.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
it's he and Lee Daniels just infuriate me
yeah, yeah. And
because
well, they yeah,
they package such trauma
yeah,
and feed it back to our community as if it's, you know, fruits and vegetables. No, it's still junk.
right,
It's
right,
still junk. And I don't
yeah,
care who co-signed that. I'm not doing it.
right. No, and I appreciate your perspective because I've definitely have had those thoughts as well. And shoot, I can't remember the last time um that I've actually went somewhere and paid money to see you know, one of his movies. I will have you leave us with a few words of encouragement. I
I
got to get my
okay.
brain in a different space because I'm really on my silly mode
Hold on,
right
because I
now.
wanted to answer the questions. I
Okay.
had some answers. Oh no. I think it was, what do you wish you'd known?
Yes, yes. If you it was something that a lesson you learned that you didn't understand at the time, but you do now.
I didn't understand, and I guess listening to our conversation, people be like, "How did you not understand that?" I didn't really understand the full effect or the intense covertness of racism.
Mm,
I
okay.
didn't, I didn't, I didn't. And I think that's because I grew up in Detroit, which you know, but your listeners might not. Um, and it's a predominantly black city.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I spent most of my time in Detroit public school system.
Hmm.
And even in that school system, most of our teachers look like us. And I mean, at times we, you know, interact with other schools. You go to, like, you know, debate and DECA and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
you'd see, you know, people from the suburbs and things like that.
Right.
And I'd heard, you know, the stories of racism and things like that from like your parents and your
Yeah.
grandparents and things like that.
History books. Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't experience it
Mhm.
honestly until I took a job in a particular place and and experienced it. And what I didn't know um, is how racism doesn't just affect us in, like, I think people think in the affect that. It affects our livelihoods. It affects our ability to seek or receive justice. Racism can literally destroy your insides. Like, it physically affects you.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and
cancer for
I
sure.
I didn't know that until it started to affect. I I I remember just feeling not myself.
Yeah.
Um, and I was talking to my sister, who's a psychologist. My sister-in-law is a psychologist,
Mhm.
and I was just saying to her, I don't think I walk the same anymore. And she was
Mhm.
like, yeah, your gait is probably different because now you're carrying the weight of this.
Yeah.
It's all, and I didn't really understand how that trauma would affect you. And like I said, I didn't understand how covert it could be. I think we, or at least I, expected racism to present itself in a more bold
Oh
fashion. It's
yeah.
it's it's the subtleness.
Yeah.
It's the person trying to gaslight you and make it seem like you're the problem. It's like,
Yeah.
am I really the problem, or is your hateful nature the
Yeah.
problem? You
Because I
know,
just like honestly, I would prefer like someone to tell me,
I would prefer it to be open. And
yeah,
that's the thing that
yeah,
I think makes it harder for us in general, is when it's like you call them and they're like, well, you're definitely being racist. Oh no, it's
yeah,
not me. You
yeah,
misunderstood me.
yeah.
I have one black friend at work that I speak to in passing. Like, you're big racist. Okay. like not even a little bit.
No,
It's you're
no,
not.
but it's. I wanted to share this because it is interesting when you finally experience that. Um, it is an interesting thing because, like you said, you do hear the stories. You see stuff here and there a little bit. I guess that could be speculated and say, okay, that might be. But I remember, see, I grew up in Cincinnati. Same thing, grew up in Cincinnati where I saw plenty of people that look like me, and I got a job over the bridge because in Cincinnati, you go over the bridge to Kentucky, and it was in Covington, and
Mm,
I'm like, okay, but it was a really good opportunity, right? And it was for a company I was already
hmm
working for, but I got a different position. They said we have an opening in Covington, and me being me, I'm like, sure, let's go, And so I get over there, and it was like night and day. It was
hmm
night and day, and I'll never forget. I was a teller, and it was a gentleman standing in the lobby waiting to be served, and I was fairly new, so I understood some people would go like to certain people, right, because they knew them and whatever.
hmm
This guy like kept letting people by whenever. I mean, he just would not come up to my window, so I'm assuming that he wanted to see someone in particular, and it got so much to where he was waiting so long that he had no choice but to come to me. And I will never forget.
Oh, said, dang it. Oh,
I mean,
okay.
he was visibly like his emotions was palpable. Like you could actually like feel them, right?
Yeah.
And so he comes up, and I will never forget this because you have the little window that you put your card in, and he threw the card through the window. He
Oh,
just
are
threw
you
it,
kidding me?
and it landed on the floor. So I was like, I looked down at the floor like
Oh, yeah.
and it was just and when he threw it, he turned his back, almost like he didn't even want to have to even address me. And I remember looking down at that card, and I was like, "Yeah, this is not gonna work." Because I
No,
just
no,
that
no.
yeah, it was just so interesting, and I'll never forget that my supervisor at the time, she was so coddling to him and was trying to get me to pick the card up, and I said, "I will not pick that up."
I'm picking that up.
That will not happen because and sometimes you can have a slip of a hand. He intentionally threw that card and was being nasty to me, and I'm like, no. And instead of her, of course, coming to my defense and saying,
Right.
hey, Howard, you can't do this, that,
Right.
that didn't happen. And I remember then that I realized that I was a team of one in that place,
hmm
and that I had to show up for myself a certain way because they were not going to, because nobody said anything even after it. It was almost like, I mean, she reprimanded me later, saying I should have gotten. I said, oh well, maybe this is not a good fit for me. Like, you
Right.
know what
Because,
I'm
I
saying?
mean,
Yeah, that won't happen.
no, that won't. And that's the thing that I think. is okay. So I understand there's a bit of naivete on my part,
Yeah.
because in some respect, in some way, as a kid, I'd had, summer jobs at like the mall. And so I interacted with people of different races
Yeah.
in a kind of, temporary standpoint.
Sure.
But to recognize that every day someone you have to work with chooses not to acknowledge your presence when you say
Yeah.
hello to the room, because that's what we've been taught in our community. You walk into a room, you say hello,
You're the one that's supposed
and
to. That's your. Yep. Yep.
realize that this person chooses not to acknowledge you because of your skin color. It was rough, and I was young,
Yeah.
when I think about it. When I
Yeah.
started in that position, I was 27,
Mhm.
so it was nothing I had ever experienced. Um, and I know I'm trying to jump in ahead, but your other question was,
Yeah.
what could you say to your younger self? I would
Yeah.
say take it seriously and not
Mhm.
try to. My tactic a lot of times is to just tough my way through it,
Yeah.
and it nearly cost me my life.
Yeah.
And it cost me quite a bit of my health, and both physically and mentally for a time.
Yeah.
um, and but also it taught me how to advocate for myself
Yep.
and how to be aware of differences,
Yeah.
especially like even in the health industry, you
Hmm.
know understanding that people that don't look like you, despite their best efforts, sometimes don't understand.
Yeah.
you know like, I don't think people even realize that black people tend to be like 7 to 10 points higher on blood pressure just because of the racism we deal with every day. It's a
Yeah.
part of our life. And
Yeah.
like you said, you at least had the presence of mind, or maybe the situation to be able to say, I'm not picking that up, it's not worth it, I'd rather
Yeah.
leave. But
Yeah.
someone, there's a lot of us who just have to eat that every day, and
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
wear on you
Yeah.
like a cancer.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
if I could tell my younger self, I would say, don't stay as long as you did
Yes. Yes.
in that
Yes.
in that position.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
just go,
Yeah.
just go.
And taking that kind of treatment, and
Yeah.
that's when it goes back to that self-worth and just knowing like I don't have to deal with this. Like I do not have to take this. And again, I mean, life is life, right? So we're going to encounter certain things along the way. It's
Mhm.
inevitable, right?
Yeah.
But it's some things I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with that.
And I think that, I love our parents, because they probably were the last generation of black parents where we all had the same childhood, which was really cool.
Yes.
But I remember talking to a lot of my elders during that time and telling them, I'm not doing well with this.
Yeah.
And the response from a lot was, well, you can't give up that good job. Like, I,
Yeah.
but if I die at this job,
Yeah.
or fall apart and have a breakdown, they're going to replace me tomorrow.
Girl, and be
you
working
know,
on it that day and be working on it as they pass that card around. I'm going to tell
you
you
know.
this too because I remember, being in my past relationship that had, abuse and stuff in it. I'll never forget. I went to an older person to speak to them about what I was going through, trying to get some wisdom and some enlightening words. And I'll never forget. She told me that, you just kind of stay. Once you get married, you're married, and that's it. And I was like, oh,
Like,
okay,
oh, okay.
thank you. And I remember that because that was what she was taught was that, once you get married, you just stay married. And I remember thinking like, no, no, I deserve better than this. And I'm not going to live a life of torture and fear,
Yeah.
and pain. And so, but I just remember that just made me think about that, like when they say you just stay on that job, like once you get it, almost like, just be thankful that you got it and whatever you have to deal with, just deal with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
no,
And
no.
that's kind of how they feel.
Well, I appreciate you for coming on today. This has been fun. I loved it.
It was. I would love to come back.
I would have never. I would start talking about Tyler Perry and the wigs, honey. But That this is a true representation of our relationship, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I am too. I had a
Well,
blast.
thank you. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Ken, and you have a great night. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, take care.
Bye.